Hey, this is Brent.
Hey, this is Jordan.
What's up? This is Matt.
Hey, this is Sean.
And this is the Digital Ascent Podcast.
All right. So I wanted to tell you all about this game that I played. And I mean, the game, it was a great time. It's very entertaining. I'm just going to preface the story with this, okay? But if you were to look this game up online, you would not. The internet does not share this sentiment. And this is one of the few times that the internet is correct. All right, this game on launch and up until this issue was found or the fix was found, it's reviewed terribly for a myriad of reasons. The AI was really, really jacked up, like stupidly jacked up, right? The graphics, downgrades from the day that the time the game was showcased or debuted to the time that the game came out, just riddled with bugs. Terrible, okay? The game in question here, all right, is a little throwback called Alien Colonial Marines. All right, from I believe this launched in 2013. Yes, 2013. And I played through the game. It is a fantastic narrative addition to the Alien series. All right, I'm not going to spoil nothing. Okay, and I got to be careful about that because I feel like the punchline of the story here is going to really wow people. But as far as it picks up just like a couple months right after Aliens, the James Cameron entry, and it literally just picks up like right where that movie left off, and it adds a lot of context. I don't know about y'all, but I'm an Aliens geek. I love those movies. I'm really excited for Romulus coming out. I've got tickets already. I don't even like scary movies like that. That looks terrifying. And we're going opening weekend. All right, that could convince me otherwise. All right. Now, the whole point of this story here is the AI specifically. I mean, I'm playing on PC 11 years later. The game looked fantastic. I was able to go into the config files and change some stuff and get the FPS updated and stuff like that. The wonders of playing on PC, of course. But the really big thing that this game got shit on the most for was the AI. All right. They just weren't attentive to where the character was at. They didn't pay attention to anything. They'd walk into a room and then just kind of stand around. Like, really stupid stuff, okay? Let me tell y'all what the issue was. So I go onto Steam a couple weeks ago, all right, and I saw a GameRanks video. Somebody was talking about, like, the worst reviewed games of all time or the worst received games or something like this. Of course, this game is on the list. So I go check it out on Steam. Like, let me go take a look. Like, which Aliens game is this? What really drew my attention or caught my attention was that if you go to the Steam store page, the recent reviews are positive. Very positive. All right. The overall, review of the game is very mixed, but recent review, and there's a couple dozen, are very positive. So I go, what? That definitely don't match what I've heard before with this video, so let me go through the list. Somebody found what the fix was, I guess, a while ago. They pinned it on the goddamn, Steam review thing, and it's there. The problem with the AI was a misspelling of one word in the game's code. All right?
No way.
I swear on everything that I love, okay? This guy and you can go find this. I've got the page pulled up right now. Maybe we'll take a screenshot or something and attach it to show notes. It's so stupid. There are 2 lines of code in the config file that you can go and take a look at, and all the way at the bottom, these 2 lines they deal with the AI. One of the strings deals with friendly AI, the other string deals with enemy AI. And the enemy AI string, it's saying something along the lines of like tether NPC to player, right? And whatever geek word you want to throw that in. The word tether is misspelled on the enemy line of code. So you go through, the guy leaves instructions on how to find the config file, what word to change, search it up, find the line of code, remove a letter. They spelled it TEATHER, and it should be TETHER. It's a night and day difference. Oh my God, it's a night and day difference. It's crazy.
That's awesome.
And I just think what to me is interesting is this is definitely a game that I think they got the actors from the movies to come back and play their respective characters, the ones that are included in the game. All right. For all intents and purposes, like, it was developed by Gearbox, the developers behind Borderlands. And I mean, it looked like a lot of money was poured into that game. It's very, very well put together. And so for it to be dead on arrival because one guy misspelled one word is it's hilarious. It's also very sad that the game has been slept on, but I think it's hilarious, and I thought I'd just open us up with that.
It's also apropos for our
I was just about to say
today.
that. It's speaking of small things getting past people that they shouldn't. What a perfect segue into our podcast episode today.
That is the main topic, although I don't think it's the first topic.
I don't think so either. I jacked that up.
Let's see.
Way to improv, Brett.
I mean, we don't have to do this one first.
So I have to do it in order, or I die.
Or you die.
Let's do it in order. Yeah,
Right,
we'll
so
do it in
let's
order. I
jump
jacked
to
up.
this.
Matt's a man
I
of
can't.
systems. He can't.
I
If
am
you
a
break
fan
the
of
system, you
systems.
break Matt.
Yeah.
That's right.
Let's talk briefly about AT&T's data dilemma
All right. So
and what that means.
AT&T was caught up in that Snowflake hack. We talked about the Snowflake hack in our last episode, and basically it's like a bunch of S3 buckets, if you're familiar with that, or basically like data cloud. It's just like a space for you to store lots of data economically in the cloud. And turns out that some people did not turn multi-factor authentication on their account. On their account, and this allowed them to get in. And AT&T was also one of these companies that was affected by this lack of MFA. You know, MFA standing for multi-factor authentication, right? Meaning, like, make sure that you get a text message or something if you're, whenever you're logging in someplace. And they said that nearly all of wireless customers are affected by this, and that's as many as I think I saw 100 million or 110 million customers that were affected. It is all text and call records. Now, not transcripts. So, they don't, or recordings. So they don't get the, so they're not going to get the recordings, and they're not going to get the, like what you said to your mom or anything like that. But they will see that you text your mom, or that you called your friend, and how often you're doing that, and so on and so forth. AT&T has gone ahead and paid a ransom for this. They paid $370,000 for this, which is quite. For AT&T, it's actually probably not that much money.
Dropping the bucket for them, I would guess.
I was gonna say this is a lot of money, but
I was waiting for a whole lot more, truthfully.
I guess it's not. No, I guess that's not that much money for it. I had the opportunity of meeting, or getting to listen to a couple of cybersecurity lawyers speak, a couple of nights ago, and they spoke, and I got to ask them questions about this. Do people when you pay that money, does the data get deleted? And they were like, well, 99% of the time, yes. And I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought the statistic was high, but I didn't realize it was like that high. And they said it's all because of the reputation-based situation. Anytime that it doesn't go as planned, there's either an oopsie that occurs, and the oopsies do occur, like honest oopsies do occur even for bad guys. It's not all just malicious. It's malicious. Some of it is just straight up incompetence also. It does happen from time to time to everybody, I guess.
It's all humans to some extent, right? There's a human somewhere involved in
even the bad guys have bad days.
That's right. Even the bad guys have bad days.
They're the ones that deserve them.
Have a lot. Yeah, I was gonna say, I hope that they have a lot of them in this in this case. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. I asked them, do like people believe that it gets deleted? Like, is that a true thing? And they said that assurances are basically like some sort of logs and chains of custody, basically, that the bad guy produces to prove that there actually haven't been copies and things like, because you got to prove it, right? Sean's over here making an interested face plus nod, and that's why I said it like that. And that's I thought that was interesting too, because I always wondered, well, how do you really know? And I guess at the end of the day, the answer is you really don't. All those logs can be doctored, but like, it, I don't know.
I find
It's
it
interesting.
so interesting that you have to, as a malicious entity, carry somewhat of a reputation in
Very
order
important.
to still be malicious. Like
Mission critical, bro. Not
Yeah,
just like somewhat. It's mission critical that you have a rock solid reputation.
sure.
Because like, what are the chances I'm going to give you $20 million if I think that there's a chance you're not going to give me the decryption key anyways, right? The Change Healthcare situation was actually an incredible anomaly. Well, maybe not like that anomalous, right? That was a lot of money, and it was structured in such a way that it could have been taken advantage of. So, like, it's not that anomalous, but like my understanding is that usually if you pay that level of money, you want to get paid that level of money a second time and a third time. And if you dipset with the second time, then there will be no third time for you. So, I don't know. Just my 2 cents.
Good information, though. It's good information.
Yeah. Something worth thinking about. All right. If you guys will, on to the main topic, unless you guys want to talk more about that. But
No, I think everyone's got a lot of pent up opinions, rage.
Yeah. All right. Let's get on to the main topic here.
CrowdStrike strikes out, baby.
Yes. CrowdStrike does strike out indeed. And we have like the luck, if you will, of having 2 people who ate it right on the chin when that happened. And so we're going to have them relive their trauma here live. And we're going to let them do a little bit of group therapy and get out some of their thoughts, feelings.
We're going to have them paint a picture. And
a very loose thing. So I'm going to give a high level overview, and then we'll start talking about what it looks like at like 6 a.m. in the morning or
You
whatever.
can't see it, but Jordy and I both leaned forward because we're getting.
They both
We're
look
so
like
ready.
I'm about to
just
lose my
go.
mind right now.
Yeah. All right. So there's this really, really well-renowned company called CrowdStrike. I mean, they've got a really solid reputation. They are like an XDR service, which basically means that they will, put something on your computer that can read all of its logs. And if at any point they decide something's bad, they will nuke your computer and, or like put it to sleep or whatever. A lot of great things. And, their goal is to stop ransomware and things like that. They would not have helped the Snowflake hack people because they just didn't put MFA on their account. But all right, if they did have MFA on their account, that this CrowdStrike could have helped them with something else later down the line. Anyways, CrowdStrike's really well known, and they pushed a patch. The patch in this case was called a rapid response patch. It was because they were seeing new threat actor activity that was novel, and so they pushed a patch to get ahead of it, or I guess in front of it, however you want to put it, to neutralize the threat. And in doing so, the patch, didn't trigger the problems in the QA phase. They did go through a QA phase. My understanding is that it's an accelerated QA phase because they are rapidly responding to an ongoing emerging threat. And my understanding of what it did is that I guess it's on boot as it's going through the various files. It eventually causes a memory read out of bounds error. Now, I am, full disclosure, I'm not a programmer, so I understand the concept that memory has blocks, and that you have to say, oh, I want to read this block, that block, or this block over here. And if you read a block that's it's not there, or it's an empty space that has no memory, then your computer goes, that's no memory. I don't know what that is. And there wasn't error catching in there to say, ooh, okay, we found that. That's, whatever we can do with it. We're going to ignore it or throw it away or whatever. Anyways, the effect of this is the lowball number of 8.5 million devices were affected. A lot of people felt it most when, their airplanes no longer were flying because they couldn't figure out who was supposed to fly where, and who they were supposed to even have on their flight to begin with, and And you know what pilot was supposed to be on there? Maybe in some cases they knew that.
Let's
But-
define affected, because that's
Okay.
putting it very lightly.
Okay, so affected in this case is the blue screen of death. Now, in Windows, it doesn't mean like your computer dies. Instead, it means that like it ceased operating very suddenly and without a way to like recover itself and, you know, make itself happy again. And you have to reboot your computer and then usually go fix something. In this case, it was doing that. I don't know. I guess it was almost immediately on boot. And there was no getting into Windows and having a good time here. And I mean, it was devastating. Delta like just barely got back up on its feet again. It seems like just a couple days ago, they said Delta Airlines said they lost $500 million.
They're in trouble right now. They're under investigation.
Yeah, Delta's in big trouble for not having it together. They were out days longer than everybody else. Excuse me. They lost $500 million plus brand damage, also, which is very real coming out of this, right? And they said most of the loss. This was interesting. They said most of the loss was caused by like hotel and fees and putting people up and stuff like that.
I can see that
for days, right?
Yep.
And man, ouch. They said they're suing. For the record, they said that they're going to sue both Microsoft and CrowdStrike for this. Jordy's making a face. Sean's making a face.
CrowdStrike's down. They reported that they are down over $20 billion in value because of this so far. And that's before all the litigation. Like, I don't even think anybody's had a chance to catch their breath and even start to sue them yet until now.
Yeah, Delta on top of it, though. Microsoft
Delta's first in line for sure. Yeah.
All right. Microsoft has said this is the EU's fault, for the record. I have the source for that. Okay.
That cracked me up so bad.
I have a source now. We're going to put that one in the show notes. No, I have the quote here. Microsoft they said it is the EU's fault because Microsoft has Windows Defender, its in-house alternative to CrowdStrike, but because of a 2009 agreement made to avoid the European competition investigation, had allowed multiple security vendors to install software at the kernel level. So Microsoft's solution is that if you never allowed anybody else to install security software, then we would never have an outage. I just want to remind everybody that there was a freaking Azure outage that morning. The entire, there was a large portion of the Midwest that could not authenticate into Azure AD because they had pushed a change and lost connection to a storage cluster.
Microsoft is really starting to bother me, man. On a molecular level, bro.
Maybe it's a hot take, but I saw Microsoft release that statement and I was like, wow.
What a load of crap.
How bold of you.
Yeah,
how bold of you.
What Sean said, how bold of you. How did your balls get so large that, I know that we're not typically an unprofessional stream, but I feel like it warrants that question. How did your balls get so large that you can cause a massive multi-state outage and at the same day go, well, this outage would have never occurred if you just let us run the entire show.
It's redirection.
If I may here, all right, CrowdStrike was under some hot water for a bunch of layoffs not too long ago, right?
Oops.
Maybe if they didn't liquidate all them damn people, the patch could have rolled through what it needed to roll through before it destroyed the world for 3 days. You know what I'm saying? What are we doing, man? And, I look at this from, I'd like Sean to go first when we get to this overview portion, because when I start, I'm not going to stop. We scrutinize a lot at our organization changes and rollbacks and backup plans and our version of QA before even regular, I don't even want to say regular maintenance because I understand the situation. This was probably routine maintenance for them, but
this is more than that. This was a fast response to an emerging threat, and it's really important to call that out because the alternative is we run it through QA for 4 more hours, and it continues to spread and go undetected or hard to detect and this and that and the other thing. I mean, like, man, you were in the military. Sometimes I feel like if like some things just warrant a response, and sometimes there's some fallout. Most people do not expect the fallout to be 8.5 million plus devices bricked.
Yeah.
When the patch that you were rolling out has the capacity to take down millions of devices around the world and ground thousands of flights across multiple days, doesn't that mean it should probably be scrutinized a little bit more? Like Matt said, I'm not a programmer. I'm not working through. It's not my job to put these patches together or go through QA for on the spot emergency maintenance or anything like that. So it is a genuine question. I mean, the things that we scrutinize are on a much smaller level, at my organization. So when I look at the worst case scenario, even if it is an emergency, you mentioned well, I don't even need to go down that path. I just feel like when the worst case scenario has the ability to affect this, the world on this scale, literally the world, shouldn't that go through a couple more hoops, even if it means we're going to wait a couple hours more for the patch or whatever.
Which of you guys learned about it first between Jordan and Sean?
There we go.
We
For the record,
rolled
my wife woke
into
me
hell
up.
together. It was simultaneous. Unless was it you first, actually?
What time were you online that morning, Sean?
I was online like 7:45 something. Actually, it may have been earlier. I can't. It was such a blur, dude. I don't really remember.
So I'm gonna tell y'all why I know this to a T. I was up. I'm in Arizona, so I start work at 5:30, but that is effectively 7:30 for Sean. Okay. I woke up at 5:30, not feeling well at all. I had an off night. I didn't get much sleep. All right. So I woke up and I was up a little earlier because I had already worked through. You wake up and it's like, am I feeling okay? You have those like internal checks that you do, and it was Friday was not my day, and I knew that immediately. So I hit up. Hey, I'm not feeling great today. I'm gonna get through the first hour of the day, and then I'm gonna check out. I'm gonna take a sick day. And as I sent that message and was getting ready to provide some follow-up and said, well, I think I mentioned like, hey, I recognize that something's going on because there was already a group chat our coordinators start earlier than all of us combined. So they'd already started comms. And I told, hey, I recognize what's going on. I'm going to stay online for this, and then I'm going to dip out for the day. And said, well, then you will be working all day. And I said, huh? And Brendan said, this is a global outage, my son. And I said, huh? All right. So I was up pretty early. I knew immediately. I didn't understand the gravity of the situation for probably another hour. All right. While we were trying to understand what was going on, what was affected, for everybody, not just, and that's where I think I'll let Sean stack in, because right at start of business, the regular day was out the window.
There was no regular day after that. So we started getting a whole bunch of offline alerts, right? We're actively monitoring all of the systems. And so all of a sudden we get, hey, every single one of our servers is offline right now. Hey, nobody can get into their computer. Hey, our account manager can't get into his computer.
I'm getting flashbacks right now.
So it turns into absolute chaos for the first probably 45 minutes. Everybody's scrambling. Everybody's going, what is going on? We're trying to find solutions. We have endless amounts of phone calls and tickets coming in. Endless.
I never seen no tickets like this.
Stream. You could. It's like the tsunami of tickets. Like it was unbearable.
You guys seen Interstellar? When they on that water planet, and they look up and it's a wave. That's what it was like.
It was terrible.
Please continue, Sean.
So after that, we started getting we had an all huddle and said, all right, what are we doing about this? And so we said, all right, infrastructure, you get to go touch every single server. Now, luckily, because we had other systems in place and things to get at the individual like host level of things, like iDRAX, things of that nature, Some of that stuff was okay. And for the majority of that, we were able to apply the fix fairly well. Where it got tricky was Azure. In Azure, it said you had to, what was the steps? You had to shut the VM down, detach storage, attach it to another machine or storage blob, go in, remove a file, edit it, remove that whatever that file was, disassociate, associate it back to the original VM, and then boot things up and then see if they work. And this is for multiple servers, right? And then stuff gets wonky, stuff that you can't like predict, because they're saying this fixes in an ideal world. We don't live in that. So, we're spending hours and hours on these machines. My guys are like calming with every single point of contact that we have. Now, the nice thing is, with it being a global outage, the PR nightmare was not ours to bear. Because we told everybody, yo, it's not us. The world is shut down. Go check the news real quick. So, fortunately, and I can say this with some pride, by about 11:45, we had 90% of the infrastructure back up. Now, this is infrastructure. This is not workstations. This is not individual users. But those systems came back online, and then all we had were the outliers that weren't really weren't responding or behaving appropriately. So I want to emphasize the biggest struggle here was the end user experience. Because what this does is it effectively says you don't have any networking. Therefore, any remote software that you would want to use to get into it, completely null and void. Absolutely worthless. So that means that we're calling individual users or having our contacts say, give this guide to your users and see if they can do it. Which depends on the user. Sometimes we didn't do that at all, depending on the competency. This is not a slight against the users, but you're going in and editing files in something that they don't typically get into. So giving them a manual and trusting them to go execute could potentially lead to even more issues. And even then, we had BitLocker keys that weren't going right. We had people that were on, VPNs out in the middle of, Timbuktu that were calling in saying, I need help. We're having to walk them through it. It was terrible. And then as a side note, there were a whole bunch of other systems breaking down, like the normal type of work that we get, stacking up on top of this. And for context, I think we're just now digging out of that hole. So, for emphasis here, the amount of seats that we have is nowhere near where some of these enterprise people are, right? We're talking about thousands. They're talking about like 10,000 endpoints. So
more,
right? Like the scale here is nowhere near to the enterprise level of absolute mayhem that this caused. So that's my spiel. I'll leave it there. I'll hand it over to Jordy. And but it was a nightmare. But all things being equal, it could have been much worse for us. So.
And Sean, you hit most of pretty much everything. So thanks for making. I mean, as far as the overall, the technical portion, how we responded as an org. So I'll touch more on the user side. And between Sean and I, Sean is, handling infrastructure and I handle the day-to-day stuff with, the clients. And, Sean, you mentioned at the beginning that like we realized that people internally were affected second to, users, that it wasn't just a user thing. And one of the things that Sean threw out was that our account manager realized that they were jacked up pretty early on. And I'll tell you why that's a big problem, because as far as the PR is concerned, this very specific account manager would normally be charged with reaching out to all of our POCs and letting them know what the deal is, right? And because his machine was bricked, he could not do that, which now meant that we had to have technical resources playing investigation and also PR response for a large, portion of the morning. Sean is exactly right, and I think he's pulling punches just a little tiny bit. I think pretty much everything was sorted by about noon on Friday as far as infrastructure was concerned. His team really knocked everything out of just fantastic. I had never seen these guys work together like this, and it was great. Chef's kiss, fantastic.
What you don't know is I told them, you either get these servers back online or you're fired.
So they knocked it out of the park, but had we had our account manager up, and it's not his, obviously he was affected by the outage, so I'm not throwing him under the bus at all, but it is just to throw out there, like, when you really look at how much was affected and how that changed our processes, it felt like we were in the very, very early days of this organization again, where we had got hit with our first rush, or, you just onboard a new client and you're getting used to, how their users submit things and X, Y, and Z. And this is definitely one of those events where users are panicking. I just started the day. I woke up and I cannot work. My computer's not working. They can't communicate with anybody. So, and granted, it took us an hour to figure out that this, was
they're hitting that Rolodex, baby.
So now we have every single user and their mother, right, sending in tickets saying, hey, my stuff's not working, right? So, and it's really just stacking issues on top of issues. The users are submitting tickets. They don't have to submit the tickets because it's a global outage and we're already tracking that, but they don't know that we're tracking it, and our account manager can't tell them that we're tracking it because his stuff is bricked up. Pause. And so there's just people are wearing multiple hats. People are, scrounging around to do things. And I'd say, again, the biggest thing was just a perfect storm. Normally on our worst days previous to this event, we're dealing with just one, maybe two of these things at the same time. This was like 8 different big things that were broken at the same time. And not all 8 of those things were CrowdStrike. You know what I'm saying? So it is also nice. I don't want to complain, and I've made a joke of that to this point already, but Sean is pretty on the spot. Infrastructure was handled that day, and most of our users were handled at the front half of last week. Unfortunately, because we had a 400% increase on that in tickets, incoming tickets that Friday, volume's been crushed on the backside. So, now we're just getting to a point where we have the ability to not focus on CrowdStrike related stuff, and now we can go back to everybody else's regular issues. But those issues have been stacked for a couple of days. You know what I'm saying? So it's great.
I can't fathom the backlog for other companies.
And that's exactly.
Can't fathom it.
I don't even want to say that questionable, right? Like outside of work, it's easy to really take a step back and be like, man, this does not suck as bad as it could have, which is what we were telling the team the same day. I'm sure you guys saw, the same stories or coverage. There were guys at Delta literally, inputting BitLocker keys on their knees from kiosk to kiosk, and they did not have a team of resources that could do it. You know what I'm saying? This was internal IT and one guy that was going from kiosk cluster to kiosk cluster. You know what I'm saying? We got to do it from the comfort of our home, which is crazy. Not one person had to be sent on site. And Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we handled everything remotely. It could have been.
No, that's not completely true. We did have a couple, I believe.
Fair. But even then.
But it was like a couple. It wasn't.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Even then, we didn't have people on their knees inputting, BitLocker codes.
For this to literally be what they coined officially as the biggest IT outage in the history of IT, it sounds like you guys fared pretty well.
Yes.
You guys worked your asses off, don't get me wrong, but in comparison, so as a third-party account to how another company handled it, how an enterprise, so my wife works for a medical company. She was affected right off the bat. Boom, boots up the computer, blue screen. It loops, goes to recovery, can't get to anything. Of course, they've got the BIOS locked down with a password. They've got safe mode locked down with a password. Everything's locked down because they don't want their employees touching anything, right? And so they didn't have an answer for it that day. So pretty much all their employees that were affected by that got the day off. There was nothing they could do. Then they messaged them on Teams and said, hey, we're going to be calling you at some point, either Saturday or Sunday. So over the weekend now, right? And we don't know when. And no, you can't schedule a time, so don't ask. We're just going to call you. And
Oof.
Right. And so they gave a 1 or 2 pager thing. And the directive was go in and do these things, remove these files. And if you can't pull that off for some reason, or we can't get BitLocker recovery to work, we're going to send you a brand new machine and you send your old one back. That was the directive. They were literally just swapping out equipment. If you can't do it, we're swapping. So that was the answer. And from what I've read, that was the answer.
Swapping equipment?
Yeah, that was the answer for a lot of companies with remote workers.
That makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah.
If we had this situation, we'd be hard swapping a couple thousand computers, I bet.
Yeah.
I guess the difference is that at the enterprise level, you would have enough backstock to actually accomplish it.
That's the thing. Because you only need, at this point with this type of thing, all you got to do is wait a day and you're going to have backstock. Right? Because some will get shipped out. You're going to have backstocks. You ship some right away, and that's fun and fine. And all your leadership's gonna get shiny new laptops, and you're gonna take those and you're gonna start churning those out and so on and so forth. And anybody who's immediately there,
you just ripple it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But what are they gonna do with the laptops anyways? Throw them in a box. The first 2 days later from FedEx, you can have 1,000 laptops sitting in your in your delivery bay.
It's wild, though. It's wild.
Yeah. And then you just start chopping.
I'm just trying to calculate the overnight shipping that you would do.
Oh yeah.
And then the overtime for people working if they're not salary, trying to get this. I'm sure people tried to hire contractors to come in here and do it just is. When you think about the scale, when you start the logistics of what has to go into fixing it. And for one file, I think that's the funniest part. It's a singular file.
Yeah, super easy fix.
You just rip that out and it goes back to being normal.
Yep. Yep. That is the irony behind it, is that it's a super easy fix.
Yeah.
But like I said, at the enterprise level, you've got people so locked down that, because I was like, I can fix this. I was like, if they don't have this locked down, I can fix this for you, babe. I go in there and it's password, please. I was like, I can't fix this for you, babe.
Nah.
can't do it for you.
Nah,
and I was like, I might need a BitLocker key maybe, and they'll send that, but nope, I didn't have anything I needed to do it. And that was the case for a lot of companies. That's just standard. They mass deploy these things,
though, especially in healthcare and financial institutions. Everything's locked down.
Yep.
So
as it should be.
As it should be, absolutely.
As it should be.
Do we have any other high points there we want to cover?
I got questions. I've got interview questions.
Okay. Interview questions.
All right. Yeah. All right. Do you have any thoughts on choosing prioritize? So looking at this from an incident response perspective, something that's really important in incident response is prioritization. So and choosing what are the high value targets versus the low value targets, and because you're going to get overwhelmed. Because there's too much, there's too much. Everyone knows there's too much, so you're gonna have to pick your battles. It's one of the hardest lessons, for insecurity, is that you have to pick battles. You're not gonna get to win all. You're gonna get a sum, basically, or you're gonna get to do some mitigations, but you're not gonna get to fix everything. So, do you guys have any thoughts on how you prioritize resolutions or anything?
I'm hopping here, Sean.
Resolutions in what sense? Sorry, Jordy.
Make the clients not sad.
Make the clients
I don't necessarily mean how did you pick your client? Did you? So some examples would be did you remediate your own stuff first for everybody or just a few people? Did you pick high? Did you
I'll tell you,
clients based on this or that?
Right.
All right, yeah. How did you sort your own pecking order without giving away too much?
Yeah, and first and foremost, we make sure everybody internally is taken care of. Once we realized, account manager was down, right? And I don't know how many people we had internally that were affected outside of the account manager, because he happened to be in, that initial chat. There's tasking normally that's happening, and his response is, "Hey, I'm down too," right? So first and foremost, we're getting those guys up. I can't speak to the infrastructure side. On the reactive side, though, the day-to-day with users, and it's really a non-discriminate we're going to work through first in, first out, which is normally how we treat things anyways. I will say that where prioritization is concerned is everything that's not related on an event like this. It's all automatically classified as a P1. It's a complete outage for every single person that's being affected. Everything that's not related to that is not being touched. And like Sean mentioned, we had the grace of not having to explain to our clients like, hey, sorry, I can't touch your stuff right now because there's a P1 going on with somebody else because the urgency affected everybody. So that was great to have that understanding. We even had POCs who, were sending stuff in and they were kind of treating it as like a, hey, number one, I know you guys are probably getting rocked. Here is what's going on our side. Here's what I'd like to be prioritized. Like some of our clients were already kind of, sliding into that thought process of prioritization for themselves. So all that to say, it's really like an event this size was like we're gonna hit them as they come in. We've got a big long list, and we're just gonna keep churning until they're not around anymore. And I think towards the back end of the day, we were able to just kind of assign a couple of bodies to hit the volume had been whittled down a lot by the end of the day that first day. So yeah, really that's a long way of saying the only priority is the work that's affecting everybody at that given minute. Sean, do you want to touch on the infrastructure side?
Sure. So our side was a little bit different because of the way, depending on the client, but most of the time it was domain controllers, file servers, anything that would intrinsically prevent, once the workstations came online, from functioning properly. Those were the high ticket items. And then we went to application layer, right? So core systems, things of that nature. So I don't know if that makes sense. But basically it's the things that handle DNS, the things that handle how the workstations communicate with the client network, that would keep them from actually functioning, even if they did get their stuff online, authentication, things of that nature. Then you roll into like file servers, which, file shares, like let's say they are on a VPN and they have to get to a network resource. We got to get those things up. And then we'd move to the application layer. And fortunately for us, there was only one instance of application being impacted. So there was a SQL server actually that got its tables corrupted. Just, yeah, because you got to remember, it's BSOD, man. Like it killed it right in the middle of a process, and it said, "Ooh, too bad." But yeah, fortunately, that was a singular instance, and most of the other pieces of infrastructure just came back up all happy and healthy. So as far as we can tell so far. So, but does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. One other question. Did you guys have any like this is equivalent to a ransomware attack?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it is.
Some people mistook it. Like I had some family members who were like, "Oh, the world shut down because there's a ransomware attack," and I was like, "What? No, I mean, I guess you could. I guess you could see it that way if you're not in the world, but that's not what it is."
Yeah, it's not. So, did you guys have any like lessons learned, and did you feel like your incident response plans were effective to such a thing?
I don't want to speak for Jordan, but I would say yes. Our incident plan was actually fairly robust, mostly because we standardize a lot of folks, and that standardization plays a big factor into how you approach those situations. You're hitting the same stuff. You're hitting the same things like iDRAX and Azure and virtualization instead of bare metal boxes. And even when you do, you still have iDRAC. So, like, there's a way to set it up where you can still have that access even at the, at the BIOS level. And I think that is a key component there. I think mostly it's how important training and drilling those responses are in the off seasons when those things
Yeah.
aren't a problem, so that when you
Bet.
fall back on your training, it actually works well. And fortunately, we had the leadership and the people at the time to keep composure for the most part. Barring like the initial what the hell just happened to us, which I think everybody went through. But yeah, the lesson learned is if you are in off season, you need to be really be paying attention to your DR strategies and what this type of stuff looks like. Because if you don't and you panic, it's just going to exacerbate the issue even more. So
Cool. I love it. Jordy, any lessons learned from your your terrible time?
Yeah, I will throw out one of the things that I think saved us a lot of time is that we internally did not find out about the issue at 7 a.m. or it was several hours before start of business. One of our knock guys happened to be online and checking into stuff. Super super early, and he was actually the first, as it should be. But I mean, this guy, it was like 4:30 my time or something like that, which is probably 6 or so for y'all. And I mean, he was the early warning system. So just having somebody that is, you can actually, they act as the observation point, for the rest of the organization, the scouts, if you will, or whatever. But to have somebody that can be aware and notify the, horsemen, if you will, so that the reaction can start to happen as soon as it can, I think was paramount to our success, and how quickly we reacted to everything. And then really the only other thing is just hammering down what Sean mentioned. We harp all throughout the year about complacency. And when we happen to be in high volume periods or seasons, we're harping less on that because people are already warm and we're drilling the processes every single day. When we roll into winter months and, work starts to die down, that's all we're talking about is, hey, stay on target. Don't get lax just because things have slowed down. We
stay
need
on
to
target.
absolutely, we need to
I
drill,
love it.
drill, drill. That way, when shit does hit the fan, we don't have to, run around confused or surprised. And after we knew what was happening, it was like across the board, everything was chaotic, but it was also like it quieted down and people just went to work. And after that initial burst of guidance, things were flowing. I mean, our team knew what to do, you know what I mean, as the understanding of what was happening. So that would not be the case if we were not as stringent on process or documentation or trying our best, you know what I mean, to be prepped in our off season so that when we are rolling into an event like this, we're not caught with our pants down, So yeah, that's it. Good questions, Matt.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah. I think those are good lessons, man. Drill is so critical. It is costly. It is time. It is costly to do it right, both in terms of like resources and time. But I think running your DR, like, it's not good enough just to make a disaster recovery plan. You've gotta drill it also. If you can't do that, you gotta at least run a tabletop, just something, to make sure that like everybody knows what they're doing and like you're thinking through all the things. And I also agree. I think communication is just so critical to.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh. If you don't communicate what's happening,
Disaster.
you're gonna get burned way worse.
Yeah.
You just are.
Yeah. Well, guys, I do have I have like a few follow-ons to this, like small little things. One is that there are now a few ways to resolve this issue. Microsoft has issued a bootable USB that will go in and do the make fix for you, lickety split. You can allegedly reboot computers 15 times. This apparently sometimes fixes it. I don't know if that's real or not, but I've seen it a bunch, so I wonder if it is. Yeah, Georgie's nodding.
Oh,
it is
yeah,
real.
yeah.
I've seen it. I don't know that it's real, but I've also heard the same things from very
you've
weird
seen it
sources.
too.
Yeah.
Okay, you can manually boot up and somehow get that hard drive out and delete this file. And I guess you can go look it up. I can read it off, but it's a lot and it's just easier to look up.
So you're talking about
And
physically removing the hard drive, pulling it up in another machine that's working, and ripping the file out, and then sticking it back into the machine.
or the Azure equivalent.
Yeah, basically.
But,
yeah.
but yes, that is exactly what I'm talking about. It's the Azure server just down.
It's
the
like
bare bones.
what was it when you used to go put the hard drives in the fridge?
Sure, I never stuck my platters in the fridge, but I've heard.
You never
the
did
rumors.
that?
No, I've heard that you could do it though.
The hell you
Yeah.
on about, Sean?
You could use it to allegedly you could do that to like fix bad blocks and stuff.
Yeah,
like
basically, because it shrink the cold would shrink the disk, and you could maybe get away with. Yeah,
I'm gonna give that an allegedly.
it
and-
only worked for me one time out of like 15,
Okay, and
and I can't even confidently say that was it. We put it in the fridge and we got it back out, and then it worked. So
All right.
anyway,
Sean?
sidetrack.
Yeah, and then Sean, I have to offer a small correction on something that you said. You said earlier that it allows specifically. You said it stops all like network communication, but like when this happens, but that's not quite true. It stops all like normal operating system network communication,
Get
but
wrecked,
you
Sean.
still get DHCP, and you still can get issued an IP address. And CrowdStrike, knowing this, has pushed down a make fix update. They said Wi-Fi is so. Gee, I wonder why. But like, how do you connect to the network, man, without the OS loading?
You
But-
you could boot sometimes into safe mode.
Okay, I didn't know that. So, but they said if you throw allegedly you throw it on wired, if you're like set up correctly, whatever that means. I don't have like the stats in front of me.
Yeah, you could do it through
will-
command prompt as well. If you select
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. You could load the Wi-Fi network. You can do like the pre-executable environment, and load the
Yep.
Wi-Fi network. I've done that
that
before.
that
Yeah,
was
that's clever.
another way. You can just CMD, change directories, pull stuff out,
Yeah.
and then
But
reboot.
you shouldn't. But allegedly, if you just plug it in to a wired connection now, it'll pull an update and be like, "Ooh, I'm happy. I could survive." And I guess after 1 or maybe 15 reboots,
1 in 15 chance.
yeah, I don't know. I guess allegedly it'll come back up. So I don't know. This has been a real interesting experience. This should be a wake up call for literally everybody.
So I actually had a follow up point, and this is something.
Okay, go for it.
So we did have some clients come back and say, "Why are we still using this? Or why should we still use this?"
Oh yeah.
So what would you? I'm curious. This is a question to the group. How would you combat this mentality? Because once you lose that trust, especially with somebody that's as big as CrowdStrike, it's a valid question. But I'm curious what the rebuttal would be if there is one.
I've got like a ton, just like sitting on deck, man. One, how many times has Microsoft pushed a server update that nukes DC or stops something like that's mission critical
Sure.
to business? Azure had just has recently in the last month had like multiple multi-hour
Absolutely.
outages of the authentication infrastructure. Right. So what I'm saying is like stuff like this happens all the time. This all happened like very suddenly to a lot of high profile people all at once. Right. But like I also argue this could happen to just about anybody playing in this game, including Microsoft. Right. I file things like this is terrible, but I still file it under like things happen.
When it comes to Microsoft and Windows, you don't have an option. Right, that industry is kind of locked down. The businesses run on Windows. I think their argument would be, well, we have a choice when it comes to our security solution.
I was saying that I basically perceive that like people that are in cybersecurity are at war with threat actors, and you're charged with defending your company and yada yada yada. I know all that sounds like a little over the top, but I mean, like, there are definitely people who will, hold my company hostage and try to take all of our money or a significant portion away and put people like they don't care if those people, like, if my coworkers lose their jobs, right? Like, they're hostile actors, man. And so part of that is that sometimes when you're making defensive actions, you overreact or make mistakes, right? And like, I don't know anybody in IT that has been there longer than like a few years that doesn't have at least like one oopsie story. I've got a couple of oopsie stories where I pushed a button and then like that network device suddenly stopped talking to
I've
the
never
rest
done
of
that,
the
Matt.
world. You're a
Not
liar,
once.
Sean. You have never caused a single outage.
Not once.
I'll tell
Not a
y'all what
single
though.
battle scar.
I bet it wasn't at the scale or volume of whatever button you pushed wrongly was definitely did not have the blowback that
Okay.
the button that was
No,
pushed.
no, the event I'm thinking of, the client didn't really care. It was the end of a Friday afternoon, and they were happy to go. A lot of them were like loosey
Bingo.
goosey. They were happy
You know
to
what I'm
go home
saying?
early. Yeah.
It's I feel like it's not different, but it is. You know what I'm saying? That it's weird to say. It's not different, but it is.
It's just a scale.
It's
Sean's a saint. Never pushed the red button. I don't believe it. I think, Sean, you have at least one story where you shut down a server. You burned at least one firewall
Oh,
to the
that's complete
ground.
sarcasm. Yeah, no, I've done it a
Okay,
bunch of
cool.
times.
All
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
cool. I
100%.
couldn't tell for sure. Yeah.
No, I
So it
deadpanned it, but
happened.
no, I shut down a domain control in the middle of the day. I swapped some UPNs and took like a whole like critical business layer, or critical business app
Yeah, see, he do
offline for
though.
like 2 days while we try to get with this terrible vendor. Like I've done some stuff, and you're right. It's mostly just the scale. That's the difference
It is.
between
It
it.
is. And man, and there's plenty of times that businesses have had like partial outages for other vendors. I agree. I did hear some of what you were saying about getting away from Microsoft and how impossible it is and yada yada yada. And I like, look, man, did CrowdStrike like make a mistake? Yeah. And was it a big one? Absolutely. Was it high profile? Yep. I'm pretty sure if they haven't been yet, they're going to be dragged in front of Congress over this thing. And definitely some law, like somebody's going to investigate them. I don't really know. I guess I should have followed up on that before the show. I'm sure it's already started, but right, like it's bad, but like at the same time, part of me was like, man, these things happen. And if you break it up individually, like for each like I know it was terrible for a lot, but if you look at each company and you ask each company whether they would, once every 5 years have a day and a half outage or get ransomware and have to give up $20 million, I I mean, or even like 100 million, or like, sorry, or even $1 million, or like maybe even 500,000. It depends on the business, right? But if I was like, you can have a day and a half outage, or you can give this dude who like who's gonna like do bad things and extort other people $500,000, what would you do, right? And most people, I feel like, would just be like, give me the day and a half outage at that point, right? If for nothing else, because what I guess I know that's not the point here, right? This isn't an extortion thing, but this was an accident, right? I don't know. I just feel like maybe I don't know. I'm inclined to offer them grace. Maybe it's just because it didn't happen to me, and so I'm not mad.
I'm talking about there are billions of dollars that were lost. You know what I'm saying? There's
Yeah, I know. It was
like
a mistake, bro.
this not this is true. You know what? We're going in circles at this point.
People,
I'm not,
sorry. Yeah.
people forget all the things that CrowdStrike's blocking day in and day out that don't
That's
end
what
up
I'm saying.
ransomwaring their business.
Only focus
That's
on
what
the
I'm
negative.
saying, man.
Yep.
Right.
Would you rather deal with this, or would you rather get ransomware 5 times a year?
Now that question is easy. All I'm throwing out here is that it does. I'm simply saying that I think it is, and I could have clarified this. I think it is valid to question a company of this size, with the volume of clients that they have, and have those questions that even some of our clients have asked of
Yeah.
why are we still using this service when something like this was allowed to slip through.
Yeah, that's fair.
Our corporation, our business, if we could not respond, quickly enough to a breach, or we mistreated it, like, that's our ass. You know what I'm saying? And sure, that could be chalked up to a mistake, but the client doesn't care about that. The client cares that they have, been put at a, disadvantage or in a bad spot because we missed something, right? So I'm at the individual level, a mistake. I'm not saying, we hang these people out to dry, but as a company, as an organization, I feel that it is right to question them, and to some extent, right? Yeah. Anyways, Sean, go ahead.
The scary thing when you think about it, it's all a house of cards.
Heard that.
Truthfully,
they definitely
really
have a front page
how
of
fragile the
NY
world is,
time,
huh?
bro.
it's a fragile ecosystem that we live in, no matter which way you slice it. So, I mean, you could take a DNS server offline, and all of a sudden, IP no worky, or name resolution no worky. Things don't resolve. Hope you remembered the billions of, IPs that you go to on a daily basis.
Now, Sean, to your point, I'd like way out in the left field here, and I promise this will be a quick comment. I'm not going to take us into another, trench here.
It's not.
Well, okay, let me get through it. All right. I'm going to get on some real deep stuff here. All right. Us, like Homo sapiens, the science is like we've been around for like 100,000 years or something like that. Well, very recently, scientists figured out that they were wrong. I'll go get sources for this so we can put these in show notes if people care enough for citations, all right? Very recently, scientists realized that estimation or approximation, whatever you want to call it, was wrong. It's actually closer to like 300,000 years that our specific, race, has been around. Our, whatever we evolved into, right? The reason I'm bringing this up is because if you take that scale, 300,000 years, most of, the foundation or infrastructure of our modern world has been created in like the last 100 to 200 years. You know what I mean? And so in the grand scheme of things, this is a terrible, like one of the worst things, you know what I mean, in current history. But what happens in like 100 years? Like if this is bad, you know what I mean? Y'all remember that like
What's the next biggest outage
yeah,
that's gonna happen?
But y'all remember like 100 years ago when it was like
your
a balloon.
AV for your Neuralink just absolutely tanks.
Yeah, exactly, something like that. I was just thinking about that the other day. Like we are at the level that we are evolving and expanding, technology, infrastructure, all these things, right? This is probably not as bad as it could have been, right? Not just for our organization, but for the world, right?
Look at that positivity.
Put it out there,
We all just need to take positivity like that into our lives.
Yep. Next big event is GTA 6 getting delayed. That's what
Stop.
Internal Shock says
Enough.
in chat.
No.
Enough.
Get out of here.
I need
He's
sources.
hey, look, he's already been telling lies. He's saying Sean was saint earlier. We know that's a lie already. He
Rude.
lied about this too.
Come on, dude. What are we doing?
All right. What's this next topic? Let's breeze through these because we got games to play. Let's see.
Yeah, you
What we got? More layoffs in gaming. Jordan, I'll let you start with this one because you brought up another one that just happened.
Oh, these guys are fools. I'll make this one quick. This was announced this morning. Bungie laid off another 12% of their workforce. There's a little bit of some. I love that face, Sean. There's a little bit of confusion on where this came from because during the first round of layoffs at the start of the year, Bungie had actually delayed some stuff where Destiny was concerned, and there were already talks that more layoffs were on the table if this last DLC that they shipped did not do well. And apparently it's sold well. There's not been an issue or a major dip in, the player base or anything like that. Things are, firing on all cylinders for all intents and purposes. The problem is that Bungie is no longer an independent company. They're owned by Sony. And the first round of layoffs was to, in Sony's words, downsize due to the growing cost of game development. And they left that open-ended, and they just said, hey, sayonara, we'll see you guys later. And I think earlier this year it was another 10% or something like that. So they've kind of just been cutting away. I guess this time is a little bit different because they didn't just lay off people. They also took another 100 or so people and actually decided they're going to take them out of Bungie and merge them into Sony's actual PlayStation, company or brand or whatever. And I think something like 12 or 15 other developers are also being taken away from Bungie's main development team, and Sony's tasked them out with their own, first party shooter or some other, a new IP or something like that. They're actually just going to create a new development studio out of these guys from Bungie. So I guess that's kind of a good thing. There's a new development studio out there, but at the cost of a couple hundred people's jobs, which sucks. But the reason I threw this in here, though, was the rising cost in game development. Games are very expensive. Brent just mentioned GTA 6, and that is very likely to be probably the most expensive video game that's been in development since video games have been around. GTA 5 was rumored to be in between 200 and 300 million, and games aren't getting cheaper. I don't know if y'all heard when the last Spider-Man game came out, that was a $230 million game. You know what I mean? So when you take those things and it can say again?
No, that's the Miles one, but no, it's Spider-Man 2.
It was
right?
2.
It was 2. Okay.
Yep. And so
so good.
Yeah, very good, right? But then you also, as you play it, you're like, oh crap, like games just taking longer to make. So from Sony's perspective, we can have all these development studios and all these, employees, and The Last of Us 3 is probably going to take almost twice as long as the first one or the second one, took to develop. As technology progresses, it just gets more in depth, and gamers are very needy and stubborn. We're a hard group to please, so it doesn't really leave.
It's not just the big guys either, because the reason I originally put this topic on here when we were originally going to stream was because of Humble Games. They shut down. They laid off all 36 employees that they had. They were a small indie studio. The game Unpacking, Slay the Spire, which I love Slay the Spire, Bo, Path of the Teal Lotus. They were all responsible for all that. Yeah, they just got rid of them all. It was like, all right, we're done. It was like, what was the quote here? At 9 a.m. this morning, all 36 employees of Humble Games were told that they were being let go and that the company is shutting down. It was just like out of the blue. This was the 24th. And then,
That's
unfortunately
crazy.
for all of us at Humble Games, or all of us at Humble Games, were impacted today, and a lot of people are looking for work and would really appreciate your support. So, yeah, I mean, it's hitting every company at any size. It doesn't seem to discriminate in terms of these studios having troubles, keeping a steady flow of development, a steady flow of revenue, interest in their games. I don't know. I don't know what the actual problem is. I mean, maybe it's exactly like you said. I mean, maybe that's just the root cause of it. Maybe people are asking for more money now for their talents, and
It's probably profit margins. That's probably exactly what it is, Brent. You know what I'm saying? If we're being honest, that's probably what it is. You know what I mean? Game development is not a career with a super huge payout. You know what I mean? Like, it's not.
I get that, but like Humble Bundle Games versus Activision,
No, that's
versus
different.
Bungie,
Right.
that's weird to me. That's like, you're not that company. I don't feel like, I mean, obviously a business is in it to make money, right? But they're not in it necessarily to make the same amount of money that Activision is going to make. You don't go into indie studio development and say, I'm going to make Call of Duty and World of Warcraft money.
You are 1,000% correct, and I should have been a little bit more careful.
No,
on that
I get where you're
delineation.
coming from too. I'm just saying, this one surprised me.
And I think this is probably par for the course over the next generation of video games because, unless we have some kind of reset, there's really not a lot of room for companies that aren't as big as an Xbox or a PlayStation or a Nintendo that can afford to take the L, you know what I mean, upfront financially, whether that means that a game's going to be in development for 10 years or, they've got to support a massive team for longer than they wanted or, whatever. A studio the size of Humble Games is not going to be able to maintain that. You know what I'm saying? Cyberpunk could be delayed 19 times because CD Projekt is independent and they had the money to do so. But when you get smaller and games are still getting more expensive, there's not really a lot of room for those indie companies to do things independently. I really think this is, over the last 5 or 10 years, we've seen a shrinkage of games in the AA space. And I feel like AA games have started to come back, but with a trade-off, indies are probably going to, my assumption, I don't want to say probably, from a soapbox, but my thought is that for a little while, indies might take a back seat unless they're making Game Pass deals or something like that, right? Or throwing their games on subscription services
access,
or whatever.
That's why a lot of people are going early access. You get that initial upfront funding, you get some traction, you say, hey, we're going to release 1.0. I mean, look at V-Rising. V-Rising is a good
ugly face from Matt in the background. You guys didn't see it, but it was an ugly face.
I'm sorry. I'm not a huge fan of early access.
I'm also not a huge fan of early access. I understand the purpose. I know what it's for. It's not my cup of tea.
It's not my cup of tea.
I like it for the guys, at home coding in their free time, building cool stuff. I like it for those guys. But for these studios that have the money to get these things off the ground, but they choose to take this kind of
Call of Duty,
like X Defiant, I ain't playing none of that, Ubisoft. I like your game, but what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, kind of setting on stuff. That happens too. It's like they're juicing it, release it, set on it. Let's see what it can do. Just by us not putting anything else into it, let's see what it can generate. I don't agree with that either. But anyways, all right, let's move on.
Oh, wait, did they abandon X Defiant? Is that abandoned?
No, I was just saying they launched in beta. When they did launch the game, they were in
half
access,
baked.
Whatever they want to call it. Yeah, I still think it's great. But
3 or 4 here. We're going to find out. Oh, okay. The epic move. Netflix levels up. This is a quick one. This is kind of cool. This is right back into the gaming space. This is kind of old news now, but because this was published the 23rd. But Netflix has moved their current game development VP into something else. I guess that guy, they just said moved on to a different role at Netflix. Mike Verdu was his name. They have hired a guy that worked at Epic Games, hence the title of this topic here, Epic Move, Netflix levels up. They have hired, Elaine Toscan. Maybe I'm probably mispronouncing that, but he is now, he served as the executive VP of game development at Epic Games, and he was on projects. He was on the Fortnite. He was on the Lego Fortnite game mode. He was on Rocket League. He was on Fall Guys. He's been involved in a lot of stuff. Now Netflix has picked him up to head up their gaming division, essentially.
Yeah, Netflix said, let him cook.
Yeah.
Cut him a fat paycheck and let him cook. That's what they said.
And that's what it sounds like. So we're talking about, here we are on one side of this conversation talking about the struggling industry, and Netflix is like, I don't give a shit. We're still trying to make this thing happen.
Which is perfect, Brent. I think this is a really good follow-up point, man, because it's exactly what we were literally just saying. The companies that got money ain't suffering. They have the ability to innovate. They have the ability to take a chance on guy from Epic. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the, man, I really hope. It's really strange when you think about, like, video games we're still in their infancy. They've only been around for 50 years. You know what I mean? That's very strange to say out loud, considering that I've been alive for 28 of the 50. That's crazy, right? So is this what we can look forward to in 50 more years? A more, condensed or contained version of what the industry is today, which really is probably just PlayStation and Xbox, or those adjacent, companies, or maybe they get bought out by Tencent or something. But, in 50 years when I, put my cynical hat on, I'm not happy of a future where we have a Tencent-sized company that owns everything, and indie stuff is nice.
Monopoly.
Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. I appreciate you.
I mean, it's very possible that this could turn into that. I mean, I will say that the cool thing about this, they're in a unique position. Any IPs that Netflix owns, like their focus, based on recent articles and interviews and whatnot, their focus are on games that are connected to their most popular shows on the platform, which I think is really, really cool. Because I mean, how many awesome series are out there would we as nerds, video gaming nerds specifically, love a AAA game or even a AA game based off of?
I can think of 5 right now.
Right,
Didn't even
right.
take time.
So
Yeah.
they're in a unique position to like really do well with that theory, but not just to do it just because. Like they really need to like sit down and spend time on it. Like I think they could make a banger like Stranger Things game. They have some out, some like, you know, top down isometric 2D games and stuff like that for mobile that has been out for a while, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of room in that space to grow. I like what they're pushing, but I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic on how they execute. I want to see what they can actually come up with. Is it all just a bunch of fluff at this point?
Last thing I'll say with Netflix, it is interesting that they've decided to go in-house with game development, or you know, whatever they're doing. I mean, if they're hiring guys, you know, that were from Epic, I mean, they're obviously leaning into this part of the entertainment industry.
Yeah,
it's curious as to why they wouldn't just lease out their IPs to developers with experience, right? Like, not that Netflix can't do it in-house, but it just feels like, as big as Google is, they tried to get into the gaming space and didn't do very well. Now, granted, they didn't give the platform as much as attention as it probably should have gotten, but
and people love that platform. That was kind of the sour thing about it. It's people
people were starting to, you know, like fall into line with it, right? So it's just interesting. Like, it seems a little late in the game, and gamers are a very hard group to please, so it's like you're taking a risk on millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars for something that, very much like Google, you may not even commit to in 5 more years, right? Which I guess is the problem that all of these companies are dealing with. You know, Xbox could not be a thing a year from now. Highly unlikely, but just saying it's not guaranteed that they'll be around forever. Just takes 1 or 2 missteps, you know, and a couple of bad generations back to back for these consoles to lose whatever steam they have, right? Which is why Xbox is leaning so aggressively into services and cloud, and you don't need an Xbox to play. I think they just dropped, you know, xCloud on Amazon Fire Sticks or something like that. They come standard in all Samsung TVs now. Like, they were really trying to get away from the money, you know, sink that is hardware and having to develop all of these things in-house. Which is ironic with the amount of money that they have spent to gather and acquire all of that talent, right? Matt, I'll never let myself live this down. I fought so hard. No, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be awesome. Xbox is gonna take care of everybody. You start taking care of his Xbox, right? Crazy.
Yeah. What about so our last topic, real quick? Let's cover this so we can move on to Jackbox Games is what we're going to play tonight. We're going to try to get that up and running. Something that I think all of us own some iteration of at this point. Handheld gaming devices. This is specifically talking about the ROG Ally X that just released, which is a powerhouse to say the least. It's a Windows-based device with gosh, I think it's got 24 gigs of RAM, and it's got some muscle. But in general, this topic is here kind of to talk about, because I recently bought a Steam Deck. I know Matt recently bought a Steam Deck. Sean's had a Steam Deck for a while. Jordan has a ROG Ally, not the X, because like I said, the X just came out. That's a brand new boy. What do we think about that? What does that say about the industry right now? Because I feel like this industry is pretty popular.
I feel like it means that the industry is popular enough that both Steam or Valve and Asus have dropped like mid-gen versions of both of their devices, with this, you know, Valve dropping the Steam Deck OLED, you know, first, and kind of leading that 0.5, you know, version. I know these aren't the only two handhelds on the market either. You know, Matt just picked his up and went through a slew of research across all of these devices and devices that are coming out in the very near future. It sounds like it's on and popping for handhelds, and I'm here for it. What are we thinking, fellas?
Man, I gotta be honest with you. I adore it. Like, I love being able to just sit anywhere and play a game. I basically use my computer as a way to stream my games to my Steam Deck. There are a limited amount of things that I will play because I want that actual fidelity, or there's like system requirements that the handheld just can't do yet. But if I'm being honest, I think it's the way of the future because it's so nice to be able to just go, oh, wife doesn't necessarily want to like actively watch a movie, but we want to hang out together. I can still play my games. I can be like, hey, look what I'm doing right here. Look at this cool cutscene. And then I can go back to what I'm doing and I put my headphones in and there's no problem. And I'm playing Hogwarts Legacy. I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3. Like, I play with Matt and I'll be sitting in my bed and we're just playing Baldur's Gate 3. And honestly, it really runs super smooth. And you can do even pick your flavor, right? But it's so customizable at this point that I can run Discord on it, so I'm not losing anything in that regard. It's Linux based. I can emulate with it. Yeah, yeah, exactly. You can sit on the handheld trips. You know, say you're just waiting around somewhere, you got to go to the DMV. Cool. Let me boot up and play Fallout 4 while I'm sitting there at the DMV. I want to, kill some super mutants while I'm waiting for my turn or whatever. You hit the power button, slide it in your bag, do your business, and then go about your way. Like, that's so powerful to me. So I think it's I'm not going to say it's going to overtake the market, but it's going to be a strong portion of it.
Yeah. Matt, quick early impressions. I say early. You spent a lot of time with it so far.
Yeah, I have. I haven't really played video games at my computer unless I was playing Magic on like Tabletop Simulator or like some.
You could do that on the Steam Deck too, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I'm not quite there with the comfort of it yet, and like really willing to get in and mess with the settings on like for like the various buttons, mostly because I have PTSD from dealing with the Steam controller. That was terrible. But it's cool. I mean, I think the coolest thing so far is today my wife challenged me. I know my laptop that I have is getting a little older. My wife challenged me, do I really need to upgrade this laptop? Because I was starting the, hey, sooner or later, this laptop's not going to cut it anymore conversation. And she challenged me if the Steam Deck would cut it. And I was surprised. I plugged it in to my dock that I have here that I use for like my mobile computers, and it popped right up and it brought my screens right up and my mouse and my keyboard just worked and my camera came on, and it wasn't like, it just seemed to work just like a Windows PC does. So I was pretty impressed with what it has there and its capabilities as like basically a laptop alternative. If you've got, like dock, Bluetooth keyboard, something like that, right? It's really easy to get your hands on. That's cool. I don't know, just works. I feel like it works pretty well. I think what Sean spoke to about being able to just like pick it up, play for a few minutes, hit the pause button, basically send it back to sleep, throw it in your bag, and then like pick it up and play for a couple minutes is great. I'm really surprised that I like it so much. I don't know, it's great. It's cool.
Cool. Yep, that's a strong recommendation for me too. But I think the use case has to be there, right? That was what sold it for me. It was like, I spend so much time at my desk. I don't even want to use this rig you see behind me. This is not like a slouch of a rig. That's a 4080 Super, and
that's a great point.
64
Brent.
gigs of RAM, and you know what I mean? Like that's a beast of a machine, and I don't even want to be here at my desk to play on it half the time. I want to go lay in bed and hang out with the wife while she's reading a book on her
It's
paperwhite.
so bad. It's so bad.
Sad.
I feel so guilty with my machine.
Yeah,
I'm
it's sad.
I don't know.
I mean, yeah. So, anyways, yeah, that's where my mind goes with it. The silver lining there is, as Sean said, using a combination of gosh, what does it even call? I mean, well, Moonlight on the client side, but it's Sunshine, I think, on the computer side to be able to. It's using like the old NVIDIA protocol to stream that over your network. Works perfectly. I stream games directly from my PS5. Look, there is no excuse for me not to play on the couch downstairs and play my PS5. I have a 77-inch OLED down there that PS5's hooked to. I still choose to play on my Steam Deck.
Wow.
Yes, because I don't want to be tethered in the living room either. I want to be able to float around on my handheld or have the ability to jump on real quick. Yeah, it's the convenience. It's huge.
I also, Internal Shock is out here throwing out cap in the chat, and I just want just so that everybody else is on the same page, you know, outside of us four, Mike, you can run up to, what are we in, the 9th gen of consoles? I'd say up to 8th gen, right? Xbox One, last generation. You can run up to Xbox One games, PS4 games, and 60 FPS, 1080. And with the pixel density on these tiny screens,
looks so clean.
It's exquisite, right? Like, and I'm running games. Most of the games I'm running from that generation are 60 FPS and above, right? Like, we're not going to play something that's going to chug super heavy on these handhelds that's going to look like crap, right? Your Cyberpunks and your Starfields, those will run on the handheld, but you can save those for the big boys, right? There's still a time and place for these big rigs. But there ain't nothing like being able to play these games and the fidelity and the quality that they were meant to be played, but from your hands. You know what I'm saying? You want to talk about freedom, and I'm gonna just leave it right there. Cap that.
There we go.
Okay, right, I want to give everybody one real quick question. All right, prediction that none of us will know for a long time. What do you guys think that like the acceptable, like, where do you guys think like the refresh rate of these things are going to be for the average consumer? Like, all right, so if you bought the original Steam Deck, how many years do you think that you're going to be able to like reasonably squeeze out of it before it's time to get, you know, the Steam Deck 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever iteration it is?
I think, I have thought about this a little bit already. I think it depends on the game where you are. Truthfully.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. Because if you're into like indie or retro games or something like this,
which I am.
So
for me,
that's the last machine you need to buy until like until battery stops working.
All
replace
the time.
The battery.
Like, yeah. I don't really like. I'll play some AAA games on there, and I'll play some big titles. But for the most part, I'm in it for the indie games. Is where I'm at right now, and truthfully, that thing will run for as long as I need it to. So I think it depends on your audience. You know, Mike made a good point of, you know, some people don't have that urge to game outside of just sitting at a desk and playing on their machine. So
I was surprised by how much I leaned into it after it was available.
It's crazy, man.
I was like, wow, this actually works for me. All right, Jordy, what do you think refresh cycle is going to look like?
I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. If the Ally X if they had doubled up on, you know, hardware power, not just RAM and, you know, storage, but a little bit more in the graphics, you know what I mean, and processing, I would have picked that up, no problem. Honestly, there wouldn't have had to have been a large gap or a large leap or jump. Wow. I would have just picked it up.
This is just proving the point, though. Because it depends on the person. Some people
I'm an early adopter. Like that is the I like having new tech. I like having new tech that I like. And you know, it's funny, when I first met Brent about 5 years ago, we had a conversation in the office about what we thought the next generation, you know, of gaming, or what the future of gaming would look like. I don't know if you remember this, Brent. I don't expect you to, but I'm, you know, and I thought we'd be going the cloud direction. I did not fathom handhelds at all.
You still can with the handhelds.
Which is right, but I thought we'd lean more into the cloud side, and there wouldn't be hardware. I thought it would. I really thought that was going to take off when, you know, the beta tests and stuff for everything was going through. So it's very surprising that handhelds have been as prevalent as they have in the last year and change, and it's a nice, pleasant surprise. But yeah, it's hardware that I'm excited about. You know what I mean? So yeah, as soon as there's an upgrade, a reasonable upgrade, I'm hopping on that train. I don't care.
Okay, Brent.
Chat.
That comment's out of pocket, bro.
Just unhinged
just
right now.
Completely out of pocket.
I'd say industry-wise, probably every 3 to 5 years. I think it has shown that, I think we had a point in time there for a little bit where it was like, I need the latest and greatest graphics card to play anything I want to play.
Yep.
We have learned very quickly that this little system on a chip with this embedded AMD little, chipset alongside it can run things very well with decent graphics. And there's a large part of the demographic that just doesn't care about fidelity at that size, especially. Yeah, I mean, I think it's made the industry a little bit more humble. Like, you've got games now, they're not striving to like make the best graphics. They're striving to make the game they already have published Steam verified and validated and compatible with the Steam Deck. So people are picking it up purely because like they know that's their only way that they consume games now. So I think it's changed the industry for the better in a lot of different ways. Linux is now way more heavily supported on a gaming side of things than it ever has been because of Valve very specifically. And then the side of, like I said, like NVIDIA and AMD, AMD has always kind of been behind the buck a little bit in terms of like latest and greatest graphics. They've always shined in exactly this sort of application, making chips for consoles and now making chips for the handhelds. They just work. You know what I mean? Like you're able to enjoy your games on the go. It's amazing. So I think we still have a lot of great things to see on that side. I think it helps everybody. I think it helps the gaming industry entirely. We won't have this like every year. There's this new video card out, this new super edition GT Ti. I've got to have it because it's the only way I'm gonna be able to play my games with 60 FPS. No one cares recently. It's like everyone's taking a step back and actually optimizing their games for a change. Not because that's what they should be doing out of the goodness of their heart, but because they want it to run on these handhelds.
He said, "You got it." All right, good addition on the end there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That was good. I tend to agree with you, Brent. I think that the refresh cycle is somewhere in the 3 to 5. I think that Jordy, I still think you're right in the sense that the heyday for streaming is coming. It is on the horizon. Xbox moving to the Fire Stick is amazing because now you have access to like, a handful of Xbox games, maybe the latest Call of Duty on any TV, basically, right? Oh, I have my Fire Stick and my Xbox controller. Boop. I can play on literally any TV now that has an internet connection.
I'll tell you what, as a broke kid, that would have been my dream. Mm-hmm. All my parents got to do is pay $15 a month and I can play from our TV. We don't need nothing else. You know what I mean? It is fantastic when, you know what I mean? Just like Sean said, based on who, it's in the eye of the beholder, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. It's good for what it is, and so I don't, for what it's worth, I think that the heyday of streaming is coming. I think that a merge between the streaming and the handheld, it will be very powerful because the battery life for something like that would probably be great. So I guess that's my 2 cents. That's all I got, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Digital Ascent podcast. Check us out at digitalascent.tech and join us on Discord. Until next time, take care.